anyways, tonight we have Corina, who's had an amazing experience out of Kelowna, British Columbia here back in July 31st, 2003 with a good friend of hers. I guess you would say it was frightening. Some of the results that came out of the sighting or the experience, very dramatic medical conditions, so forth. So, anyways, I'd like to welcome Corina, and she's going to, relay a story to us and give us an update, and we'll see if we go from there.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good. And yourself?
Good, thank you.
Great.
Good.
Well, I guess you had yourself more than an experience. I mean, you've had a lot of experiences, over the years, but this year on July 31st, 2003 seemed to take the cake. And wow, I mean, I'm blown away from, some of the things that came out of it, so it was pretty amazing. And just for a note here, too, I'd like to put in before we get into it. There was a lot of sightings that were led up to this one experience that Corina and her friend went through. Started actually just before the 25th of July, I believe. Many sightings started rolling in, some pretty fantastic sightings, and then we got up to the 28th where there was, roughly 200 witnesses to one main event, which ran through that area also, where Corina had hers. Anyways, right after this one on the 28th, it came to July 31st, and Corina, you can take it from there and tell us what happened with you and your friend.
Sure. July 31st, a girlfriend of mine had come up from Abbotsford to visit for a few days, and to make the long story short, we were looking at some rentals on the internet, and it was around midnight. It was, about 5 minutes to midnight, and she was leaving the next morning, and she said to me, just quite suddenly, why don't we go stargazing? And I looked at her and I said, well, I'm quite tired. It's very late. I said, can't we do that the next time you're out? Oh, no, she said, come on. She said, let's just go. And I thought, well, okay, what the heck, we'll go. But I didn't really know where to go stargazing because I just recently moved myself to Kelowna, and I didn't know where to go to do any good stargazing. So we got into the car at about midnight. We left my apartment building, and I found myself driving along one of the back roads to go to Vernon.
Okay.
And I had never gone up that area before, so I didn't really know what was out there. We started driving. It's a Thursday night, midnight, and I thought, geez, there's a lot of traffic. And I just finished saying to her as we were driving, I don't think we're going to be able to get any stargazing done on this road. I said, look at all the traffic.
Right.
Then I don't know what happened, but, I mean, it seemed like within 3 minutes of saying this, there was absolutely nothing. Not one set of headlights. There was no moon that night that I can remember. There were no street lights. I mean, this is out in the country beside the landfill, and there's just nothing there. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh, well, okay, all of a sudden it's quiet, and it seems very dark out here. Right. Why don't we just pull off on the side of the road? So I pulled over to the side of the road, and she got out of her side with the binoculars and started looking up right away at the stars. And because of the time of year it was and the recent sightings that they'd had with bears and cougars, I had brought my 1.5 million candlelight, which I can plug into the lighter just to make sure there were no animals around.
Right, yes, good idea.
So anyway, I plugged the light in, and I got out of the car, and right away she said to me, so it was within 2 minutes of being out of the car, if that, she said, geez, there's 3 lights up here in a triangular formation moving together. It looks like 3 stars. And she said, well, stars don't move like that. I said, of course not. I said, no, it must be, a plane or something that you're seeing. She said, no. She said, it's 3 stars moving in a triangular formation. And then right away she said, oh, wait a minute. She said, it just changed. I said, what do you mean it changed? She said, well, it's a neon green colored thing that's up there, she said.
Right.
And I said, well, what does it look like? She said, well, it looks like an oval, like an egg shape. Oh, she says, no, it looks circular. But the color remains like a bright neon green.
Right.
At that point, around that point, what I did is I turned on my light, looking down ahead of us, down the road to the left, and about 45 feet in front of us. And no matter how many times I talk about this, it's always hard for me still to this day.
I can't believe it.
there were some sets of eyeballs looking at us.
Right.
One was by himself, away from the other four.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened, but it was almost like it was a telepathic thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was like he knew what I was thinking. I knew what they were thinking. I panicked. My first thought was, it's got to be animals or something.
Right.
And then when reality checked in, I went, oh my God. And I remember frantically trying to get back closer to the vehicle to open my car door, but it was like moving through quicksand.
Mm-hmm.
And in slow motion. And every time I would try and grab at my door handle, it was like I had no strength in my hand, and it would slip off the door handle. And I would be getting more and more panicky. I mean, I could barely breathe by this time. I was trying to scream at my friend to get back in the vehicle,
mm-hmm.
but my voice would hardly come out. The next thing I know, we're both scrambling into the vehicle. We're sitting down. By this time, we're pretty freaked out. And, I'm trying to get the vehicle started. It won't start. But yet all the lights are going on and off, and things are just going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I neglected to mention was that through those few seconds or minutes that this was happening, quite suddenly all the coyotes in the neighborhood, and it sounded like there was a lot of them. It sounded like as if we were surrounded by coyotes. They just went crazy. The dogs in the neighborhood, I guess in some farms or something, were barking like crazy. And then this cold, musty smelling air came down, and we both noticed it at the same time. And it was after that, when I flashed on the light, that we saw them. But we got back into the call. Finally, I turned on the ignition again, and it finally did start. When it started, I quickly did a U-turn across the road.
Right.
At this point, there were no headlights, no cars, no eyeballs. I don't know what happened. I don't know where these things were. So we just started heading back to town. I was speeding back into town, and all of a sudden she screamed. She said, stop the car, stop the car. And I pulled over and I said, what? I said, I don't want to stop now. What is it? And she said, well, look at the clock. And I was getting angry. I said, why do you make me stop to know what time it is? I couldn't understand what she was getting at. And she said, look, we got here at probably 7 minutes, maybe 5 minutes after midnight, because it takes about 7 minutes to get to that point from my place.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's just after 1. She said, there is no way that we were out there for an hour. Forget it. It's impossible.
That's right, because when you guys, both of you ladies jumped out of the car,
right.
I mean, everything took place right away.
Yeah.
And then something else, you're sitting here listening to this, and of course I've heard it a lot of times, and you start thinking about it and think about different things to ask and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, just to back up a little bit too, is when you guys were heading out to this area, there was a lot of traffic on the road.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden everything seemed to die down. In other words, hey, nothing's happening. Is it possible? I mean, I'm not asking a question as sort of because I don't know, and I'm sure you don't know either, and nobody knows. But it's funny that everything sort of came. There was nothing. So in other words, and then like you said, you felt like you were going through this quicksand, and everything sort of slowed down.
Yes.
Is it a possibility that the whole event, the whole area you were in, was slowed down? In other words, there was no traffic coming. That you're aware of. I mean, and it sounds pretty weird.
Well, believe me,
but
we thought of every scenario possible.
I bet you did.
We were trying to explain this in an earthly fashion, in a logical fashion.
Exactly.
So,
and it's hard to come up with an answer.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes, it was.
I bet. Mm-hmm. But and even back, when you guys, like you said, you went, heading back to town, or back to your home, when you did U-turn and you felt like you were zapped. This zapping, there's like a draining up here?
No, it was more when I expressed how I was feeling when we got this time thing. She was asking about the time. Mm-hmm. I also mentioned to her, I said, look, I want to get out of here. I'm feeling very strange. Right. I feel like I'm electrified, like every hair on my body standing up, like I've gone through a wall of electricity or something. I said, I know it sounds strange. And then she said, oh my God, she said, I was feeling the same way, but I was scared to think that you were going to think I was crazy. I said, look, after what happened, I said, I think we're both crazy.
Right.
You know, we just didn't know what. And then when we got closer to my home, and she said to me, we were not even half a block away from my apartment building. She said, Corina, look out your window. And I went, oh no. And I looked, and sure enough, the green object was in the sky. It had, I guess, followed us. So I said, well, I'm not taking this thing home. There's no way, because my daughter's at home. And, you know, if it's followed us, I don't want my daughter hurt. I know it sounds silly, but that's what my thoughts were at the time.
Understandable. You're a parent. You're a mom.
So,
you know what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
So
we just drove, I guess, almost a block down further, and I pulled off onto a side road. And we had the windows, I believe, rolled down or something. Anyway, I looked at the thing. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, I will not accept this. This is not happening. I said, all this is a helicopter or a plane or something. But I said, it's nothing else than that. And she said, well, I don't hear anything. I don't hear like a whoop whoop sound from a helicopter. I don't, and she said, there's no way that a plane would sit still and hover like that.
Right.
So.
And most definitely, with windows rolled down, if you think you had them done, you certainly would have heard the sound of a rotor blades turning at a low altitude. No, it's a while ago, but at one point, the main things still do remain in my mind, because I have not had any form of hypnotherapy for anything that I'm remembering. I'm remembering because I remember it. Right.
So the next thought is, it was, I think, myself. She said, oh, look, it's going away. She said, see, it probably wasn't anything like that. She said it was just a plane.
Right.
And I think it was myself. I said, well, let's see. And I pulled out the 1.5 million candlelight and flashed it 2 or 3 times towards its direction. And it just stopped on a dime, and I thought, oh my God, what if I'd done that? Was my instant thought in my mind. Yeah. And it was instantly, just that fast, just that fast. It was back, and it was hovering above our vehicle.
Right.
Now, granted, it was a ways up, but you could still see it, and it was definitely up above the vehicle area.
Did it and this is still this neon green color?
Yes, it is.
Did it give off any of that color, so it sort of lit up the area as a vehicle or anything like that?
No,
okay.
Not that I could see at that point.
Okay.
Like I say, it was a ways up there, but definitely big enough that you could see the color, you could see the shape.
Right.
There was no sound or anything like that. At that point, I said, oh my God, I said, that's it. I said, we've got to get out of here. And I drove down the rest of the road, and I turned up another road, which takes you up into just a bunch of orchards. And there's not normally no lights up there, and pretty dark. And I thought, well, we'll just go and hide in there. They'll never find us in here.
Right.
Not knowing what we're dealing with.
Right.
And I just parked the car, and I was so upset from all that had happened. I kind of rested my forehead on my arms on my steering wheel. So I was with my eyes closed, looking down, and at one point I felt her tugging at my sleeve, and I said, what is it? She said, look through the front windshield, and I said, no, I don't want to hear it. She said, you have to look through the front windshield. Look up. So I did. And no, it wasn't one green object. There were 3 of them.
Right. Okay.
And they were in a triangular formation.
Okay. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Now when you looked out and you'll be able to see the 3 and not the 1.
Yeah.
Now, do you believe it was? I don't know if you could see it or not. One structured object, or maybe 3 separate?
They were individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
To me, they felt I saw individual.
Okay.
I believe she did as well. As soon as I had looked, maybe a few seconds later, one shot off over the mountains into the States area. So it went, south. Would be, I don't know, I guess southwest or something.
Okay.
And then another one shot off in another direction, and the one just stayed there. And I said, we can't stay here all night. I've had enough of this cat and mouse game. I said, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Enough is enough.
Good idea.
And I came home, checked on my daughter right away. She was sound asleep, and went and sat at the kitchen table, and I said, we've got to figure this out. I said, there's got to be a reasonable, logical explanation. This totally scientific or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, this can't be. Both of us decided we were too tired and feeling kind of sick to discuss it, so we just went to bed.
Right.
I was the first one to get up in the morning. I got up, made myself some tea or coffee, sat down at the table. I was feeling like throwing up. I had noticed a huge, large, circular kind of bluey, purpley mark on my left breast, on the side of my chest. And I also had a bruise like that on the bottom right foot, on the flat part. So whatever I did, it looked like I had been fighting somebody.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I felt like throwing up. I was very dehydrated, felt a little disorientated, but didn't really want to think about anything, like what happened the night before. She got up a couple of minutes later, and as she's walking down the hall towards me, she just entered the kitchen, and she said, I really don't feel well this morning. And I said, well, it's a good thing you're going home. You can go see your doctor. Maybe you're coming down with the flu.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was it. At that moment, her right nostril didn't start just dripping. I mean, it was almost gushing out blood. It was ridiculous. I went, oh my God, you're bleeding. And I had to grab a towel and just put it up under her nose because it was getting all over everywhere, right? There was so much blood. And I said, well, I think you better sit down. She said, no. She said, I'm going to go have a shower. She says, I'll feel better. She said, I'll just put my head back and stand in the shower for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she went and had a shower. My daughter, meanwhile, gets up and says, oh, Mommy, she says, I really don't feel good this morning. She says, I don't know, maybe I got a cold or something starting, because she says, my nose, feels kind of stuffed up and stuff. Well, if I know this is going to sound crazy, but her right nostril starts bleeding the same way that my girlfriend's nose just finished doing.
Okay.
So I grabbed her a towel, and I said, I think you better sit down. I said, it's just a little nosebleed, and it will pass. I mean, I tried to pacify her because I didn't want her panicking. At this point, she didn't know what had happened to us the night before, right?
Pardon me.
So then my girlfriend came out of the bathroom a few minutes later, and she said, my nose has stopped bleeding now. That's better. But she says, wow, she says, I sure have some really bad pain down my lower back, quite low. She says, so it's kind of embarrassing to me, but I need you to check to see what's there. And, of course, as soon as I saw the mark, I knew what it was, because I'd had marks like that before in my life, except mine were a perfect triangular shape. Hers was a perfect round circle. It was bigger than a toonie, and it was at the very bottom of her spine on her back. There was literally a radiation-type burn.
Yes, and just
on
so
her body.
That's right, and just so the people who are listening to this, there are photos that I have on my site. Do you have them on yours too, Corina?
Yes, I believe I do.
So they're on Corina's site also. So I mean, there's pictures there you can look at and look at this burn of what sort, because actually your friend eventually did go back to the doctor, and that's what he said it appeared to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, as soon as she got back to the Fraser Valley, she went to see her doctor, and her doctor did use those exact words. He said, if I didn't know any better, I would say that you have yourself a radiation burn.
Right.
But that's silly. How could that be?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Exactly.
well, of course, she didn't say anything. She just...
What can you say? I mean, what do you say to that? I mean, I wasn't anything near anything to, for that to happen. A burn, where would I got that from? I'm sure you would have backed into something or whatever. You would have known. You would have been jumping. Somebody would have been jumping. So you would have known,
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. I mean, that's really, really weird. To me, that is totally strange. And now, and your daughter to have the same thing happen too. Or not the burn, but I mean with the nosebleed.
Yeah.
That's unusual. I mean, now you got the three of them in the mix here. What now? If you want to continue on, what happened there? Because I don't know how much you got to go, but I want to get to your friend too, a little bit of how things are going on there and whatnot too.
For a little while, we stuck together like glue, and we even seemed to be afraid at one point of being apart almost. So we spent a lot of time together when she came back to Kelowna. But after a few months, for some reason, we just lost touch. And haven't spoken for at least a year now.
Oh.
And from what I hear, she has moved back to the Fraser Valley.
And I mean, you guys were good friends.
We weren't very close friends. I was more friends with her mother.
Okay.
And I had seen her and spent, a few times with her, 3 or 4 times with her in the Fraser Valley, stargazing or talking with her at her mom and dad's place.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now there's a lot of other things that have taken place personally to yourself. I mean, the family. I mean, I understand that your son he doesn't live there in Kelowna. Lives elsewhere, and he likes to come home, of course, to see his mom.
Yes.
But he sometimes is afraid to.
I'm starting to begin. I'm beginning to think that yes, he does have some fear. He's kind of torn. He really wants to visit with me, but 3 times now he's talked about coming up, and he's actually canceled. My personal opinion is that it is due to what happened to him the last time he visited. He lives in Vancouver area.
Right.
He's 21 now, and very good kid, not into drugs or drinking or anything like that. He's got a steady job. I mean, he's got a good head on his shoulders, but I don't know. He hadn't seen me for a long time, and he decided to come up and visit me in 2002, just before I had surgery. And he wasn't here. He was just here one night, and the morning after he got up, he was on his way to the shower, and I said to him, "Whoa, wait a minute," because he just had some shorts on. And I said, "There's something on your back." And he says, "Well, it feels kind of weird back there." But he said, "I couldn't reach it." And when I walked up to him and saw what I saw, I was just, the tears were just, I couldn't help it. And he said, "Mom, what's wrong?" And I said, "Oh my God." I said, I don't believe this. And I took him to the bathroom, and I took a second mirror, and I showed it to him. I said, "Look at this." Now, first of all, my son sleeps on his stomach. Right. He always has. This mark was on his back. It was 4 by 4 by 4, perfect triangular mark. It had ranging from 1 all the way down to 6, so 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, down to 6 circular radiation burns within the triangular mark.
Right.
And it was just there on his back.
I'm looking at the photos right now.
Exactly.
It's almost located, not quite in the center, closer to say the tailbone area, but I mean up, close to the middle, and it's almost on your running down your spine, just off to say in the right hand side.
Right.
It moved over a little bit to the right. Very distinct triangle, no question about it, and the marks inside very distinct. Can't miss them. did this ever clear up eventually, or has they stayed with him?
It did heal up. Mm-hmm. They always do. It takes a while, but they do heal up. We were determined. Him and I were determined that we were going to have this documented, and that we were going to have a doctor look at it. We weren't going to just let it go.
Right. Yeah.
So we took pictures, and then when we both finally calmed down enough, like he was trying to, kind of say, it's okay, Mom, like right. It doesn't hurt, it's okay. He was trying to pacify me. I was trying to
right.
pacify him.
Yeah, I understand.
We went out onto the balcony, and, I said, come on, let's just sit outside for a minute and sit, and get some fresh air. And he said, sure. So we went and stood out on the balcony, and oh my God, we looked like this building. It was almost brand new at the time mm-hmm. when I moved in here, and they had planted some brand new green little trees out back.
Right.
And they were all bright green and very healthy and young trees. Now, as we stepped outside on the balcony and looked towards the back there, the bedroom where he had been sleeping all night, there was a tree that is right in line with that window. All the leaves on that tree were yellow.
Yes, and I have the picture in front of me too.
Yes.
So yep, I can definitely see it.
Yes, I took pictures of that as well.
And that, I mean, that was a perfectly, like you said, healthy green tree.
Yes.
The night your son went to bed.
Yes.
And the next day, of course, woke up. You guys went on the bed. And
all the other
sudden,
trees seemed fine.
That's right. So there we go. We got some more evidence. You also had, I believe, your son had a hole in his, basically in his down.
That's another incident.
I know.
The poor guy when he was 9 years old. Yeah.
And that wasn't little. I mean, you probably stick your pinky finger in there, I think.
Yes, I could. That was very gross. That was really disgusting. It was very frightening, terrifying for him.
Oh, gosh.
We never did get a straight answer from the doctor.
Never did, eh?
By the way, we did go to the walk-in clinic with him with the triangular mark,
right.
with the burn mark. She kind of smirked, and the first thing she said was, looked at him and said, what kind of toys do you bring to bed? Kind of attitude. And he said, no, listen, he said, I'm 21 years old. I'm not 8 years old anymore.
Yeah, well, this is the kind of help that a person goes for.
Yes.
You go for this kind of help,
That's
and
right.
then this is what you get from people. And it's no wonder why people who are going through these experiences, as yourself and your family and others, well, they're so afraid to do something. They're so afraid to open up their mouth and they sit there and they deal with it themselves. And that's it. They deal with it because some of the people actually go nuts. And it's really sad that this does take place.
Well, see, she was frustrated because she looked at me at one point. She said, look, I know of no medical thing that can create a perfect geometrical mark like this. I've never seen this in my life.
My God.
Okay. So anyway, we came home, but sorry, I went off track.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
But I feel so bad for him because they've been very busy with him at different times in his life. When he was 9 and we lived in the Fraser Valley, we had a huge sighting of a boomerang-shaped ship one night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around that time that my son woke up screaming, and I woke up in the morning with his screaming. It's that kind of like that blood curdling scream that a child has, and oh my God, something's really wrong.
Yes.
And when I got to his room, his back was arched, and he was just, trying to breathe because he was in so much pain. He had a hard time breathing. Right. And of course, I tried to settle him down, and he was able, between the gasps, to say, my back, my back. And I turned him around, and I'm telling you, it took everything inside of me as a mother to not lose it and to not scream myself. It was horrible.
I can imagine.
I mean, he literally had a hole in his spine, just beside his spine. And I mean, what really got me is I could see the inside, but it wasn't bleeding. There wasn't 1 ounce of blood on his sheets, not anywhere on his body. There was nothing.
And the doctors, and of course you went to the doctor.
Of course, right away.
We got you got the photographs here.
Yes.
You got them.
Yes.
I'm looking at it, and there's one heck of a scar.
Oh, he's got quite a scar. Yeah.
And this is getting pretty low in his back.
Yes.
Really low.
Now, since that time, he's had pains off and on in his spinal area. So I don't know what was done, what happened to him.
Exactly.
But again, we were basically almost laughed out of the office, you know. Well, and then there was also that look, you know, like, are you beating your children? He didn't say it, but I got the look.
Yeah,
and I thought, oh my God, where are we going to get some help? What am I going to do to help my children?
How can anybody walk into an office with their son like that with a hole in his back, which you can obviously see something like that in the photograph, and they come out and they you know, they're starting to wonder what's going on. I mean, didn't they give you any kind of indication like what was caused? Although they didn't know, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, my son, as young as he was, when the doctor finally said, he looked at both of us and he said, you know, he said, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think it is. He says, I think your son has chicken pox. My son and I looked at each other. He looked at the doctor, and as young as he was, he said, you've got to be kidding. And I've always brought up my children to be polite and so on. So this was very unusual for my son to just come out and say something like that to an adult.
Because they were dumbfounded. They didn't know what the heck would have made that. How did that come up? I mean, that's something like this just doesn't materialize out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't know. They honestly didn't have a clue. So they grabbed for something. That's my thoughts on it. And to come up with something, give you something. Hey, this is what happened. Maybe it'll make you feel better. Not really. You know.
No, he gave us some antibiotic cream and dressings that I had to change 3 times a day every day, and some antibiotics by mouth. It took us 3 months to get that thing to close up.
My God.
I don't know why it took so long to heal up.
I can see why. I can see why, Corina. It was a huge hole.
It was big, yeah.
And it went down to how deep do you think it actually went?
I don't know, but I could see white stuff. Now, I don't know if that was bone or nerve endings or what it was, but
right. We'll leave that one.
At that time, I wasn't in a financial position to own the camera like I do now.
Right.
I didn't have a camera, so I wasn't able to take a picture of it when it was open.
Right.
But I have taken pictures of it with the scar healed up now, which I think you can see on the pictures that I sent to your website.
Yep, you betcha. And I think we got them on your site too.
Oh, okay.
I think they're. If they're not, we're going to put them up. I'll put them up with this other stuff. But anyways, yeah. What you do is you have. I believe your son is just laying down for you here on his tummy, and you have your finger pointing to the scar, which is a good size, and you also have a little pointer.
Yeah.
So just so you can see it. There's no question about it. There's something obviously traumatic happening there. There's no question about that. You know, and it's very sad. Actually, there's a blow up. There's a blow up of it too. So it gives you a really good shot of the actual scar. Amazing, just amazing. And I just can't. Medical people, you don't guess at something like this.
No.
I mean, personally, I'd want to know too. I mean, I'm a parent. I want to know where this stuff. What's causing this? That's hard. What are you telling them? Visitors are doing this, or this is an experience. I know it's tough because they'll think you're crazy.
Yeah.
And then you won't take you serious. But it's not right either. I know there is some doctors around, very few, that are at least open-minded enough to listen.
Yeah.
Maybe relate. At least they're giving you on a little bit of a different playing field. Give you some different ideas or whatever. I don't know. But coming up with a stupid, as far as I'm concerned, a stupid answer they gave you is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Really ridiculous. Okay, so anyways, now like I say, back to you. You had yourself, of course, after the night of the 31st, you carried on. You ended up going through a lot yourself. I mean, a lot in a period of time.
Yes. From it started. Well, that same night, of course, I got up August 1st from July 31st in the morning with severe head pressure.
Right.
Very strange pains and pressure kind of feeling. This pressure never went away. It stayed. It to this day is still with me at times. It has gotten better in the last few weeks now, but it's still there.
Right.
But before it was constant, 24/7. It would be there.
Okay.
Now it progressed to the point where I finally said, this is it. I've got to find out what's going on here. I had a strange episode happen to me where I was sitting at my computer, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. The computer chair was on top of me, and I didn't know how I had gotten there.
Right.
So I went to a doctor. They sent me to a specialist. They did some special tests, and as it turns out, it came back that I had some kind of brain injury or something, they said, on both temporal lobes and in mid-central brain or something. I can't remember exactly what they said. I'd have to pull my paper out, the medical paper.
That's fine.
But I asked the specialist, I said, he thinks that I'm having these small seizures now where I don't have grand mal, but I have, it's like sometimes people will just do a staring thing for a minute and they're actually having a seizure. I said, how can that be? How does this happen? He said, well, usually it happens from a trauma to the head, like a blow to the head or something like that. And I said, well, that I know of, I haven't had any blows to my head in the last few months. So I guess to this day, they still don't really know. They're just kind of pacifying me and saying, well, this is happening now, but we're not sure.
Right.
Kind of take it a day at a time kind of thing, and that's it, basically.
That's right.
Now, the one other thing that's been happening, and it's very scary, is what I call these cold spells.
Yes, I know.
Where my body temperature goes from normal, and and goes down to 34, 35 degrees. Now, by this time, my skin color has changed. My muscles are almost totally frozen. I am having problems talking, moving, anything. To reach the phone, the hospital, emergency, took every effort I had in me.
Well, you said, I mean, even just like I know we were talking about this some time ago too, actually, when it was all taking place, I think your lips changed color.
Oh,
your skin actually changed color to a degree, even the slightest or whatever, but everything was happening such, so dramatically. I mean, he was showing, not just feeling it. I mean, it was showing it on your physical,
Yeah, and it would happen very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's like I almost had no time to understand what was going on to grab the phone. Now, the first time it happened, I was so terrified that I did manage to grab the phone, and I called, and it was hard for me to speak, so she had a hard time understanding me.
Right, I guess so,
but she finally got it and said, you sound like you're hypothermic, like you need to get to a hospital. And it was very late at night. Everyone was sleeping. I said, no, I can't. So what I did is got myself to the bathroom, poured a hot bath, and got into a hot bath, then got out of the bath, put on tons of clothes, and got into my bed. Right. And by this time I was shaking. I was just shaking. And then I don't remember. I guess I woke up the next morning.
So you don't remember after anything?
No.
Sort of after the bath?
No, I just remember getting into bed and shaking, and next thing I knew, I was waking up in the morning, and my body temperature was back to normal.
Back to normal.
Yeah.
And how many times has that taken place, Corina? Has it taken place?
Oh, boy. I would say at least 5 or 6 times since 2003.
And I know, because I remember you had gone into the hospital there, because you hadn't been well. Right, exactly. And because you hadn't been well after the 31st, and you hadn't been well, those months leading up to that. You were in there, I don't know, almost a week, I think it was?
I was in there actually almost 10 days.
10 days, okay.
And what happened is I had this cold spell, one of these cold spells come on.
While you were in the hospital?
No. That's
before.
What got me to the hospital.
Because I just wondered, did they actually catch this and check out what it was happening? That's what I was wondering. I was thinking, right on.
Well, this is weird because by the time I got to the hospital, I had taken myself there or got somebody to drive me there because I had this cold thing going on. My body temperature was down to 34.3, and at the same time, my heart was beating totally irregular and very shallow, and I think I was doing like 42 beats per minute or something. It was ridiculous. I thought I was dying.
Yes, it sounds like
so. By the time I got there, they quickly did the thing. They noticed that my temperature was really low.
Right.
My color had changed. My heart was beating irregular. They started rushing. They put an IV in. They did a bunch of blood work. The next thing I knew, this doctor was coming in, and he said, "Wow," he said, "your white blood count is right off the charts." He said, "Like, I can't believe you're actually got yourself here." So they started me on 1 gram, I think, 1,000 milligrams of antibiotics through the intravenous right away.
Right.
And then they also said that for some reason the liver enzymes were sky high. Now, I've never drank in my life.
Right.
I've never touched drugs. I don't have any form of hepatitis, HIV, nothing.
Right.
I'm totally clean that way. So why would my liver enzymes be so off the charts?
Yeah, really. Because I know, I mean, even when a person gets your white cell blood count, I believe when it goes up, and that's usually an indication of some kind of infection or something like that. Because I know I had it myself, and when they sent me for tests, and that's when the results came back, and they said you must have an infection. They put me on the antibiotics.
The only thing is they couldn't figure out where this infection was from.
Exactly.
So they just decided to keep me in. They said, you're not going home. We're going to keep you under observation. We're going to see what happens. And it took quite a few days before it finally came back down to within normal range.
Right. That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you get out, and then you of course get out of the hospital eventually. Answers. What kind of answers? None.
What answers was I getting?
Yeah, exactly. No,
absolutely
not much.
Nothing. Zero.
Right. Exactly.
Don't know what happened to you. We're not certain what it was, but hey, you're better now. Your blood count's almost back to normal, except for the liver enzymes. We're gonna have to keep an eye on that, and that was it.
Well, at least they're going to do that. Now, since that time, and now have things been
I've had
sort of feeling off times too? Or?
It's off and on. I've had quite a few potassium levels crashing. Actually, one time it was so bad they actually took me in and put it in intravenously. It was that low. So again, it makes your heartbeat totally irregular. You're feeling weird. It's not a nice feeling.
No, and in the meantime, I'll say all these medical things are taking place. You're still having the odd.
Well, Nikki has definitely, my daughter, who's almost 18, moved out now a couple of months ago, and she moved in with her boyfriend a few miles away from me here. And she seemed to be doing okay until about, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. She called me in the morning and she said, "Wow, Mom," she said, "I don't know what's going on or what happened through the night. I must have had a spider bit me or something." But she said, "I've got 2 lumps on my head. One's behind my ear, on my scalp, and one is in the back of my neck." And she said, "They're almost as big as golf balls."
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, "What?"
Oh, jeez.
I said, what is that? She says, "Well," she says, no, don't panic." She says, "They're not all, they're not like golf balls. It's like half a golf ball sticking out." And I said, "Well, that's still big enough."
That's right.
I said, I want you to go to the walk-in clinic. I said, "You have to have a doctor, look at that."
Right.
So she says, "Okay, well, I'll do that." The next thing I knew, it was a couple of hours later, probably around between 10:30 in the morning and 11:30 in the morning. She gives me another call. This time she's frantic, and she said, "Oh, my God, Mom, they're here." I said, "Who? What? What are you talking about?" And she said, the black helicopter, it's here, it's above the house." Now, her boyfriend doesn't know anything about what's happened to us. He's never talked about strange stuff. I mean, he's just a regular person who's never experienced anything. So he was apparently very freaked out.
Oh, I guess he would have been.
21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking up at this black helicopter, blacked out windows, no numbers, no signs, nothing on this helicopter. Everything's black, and it's a big one, and it's hovering like rooftop level, like where the trees are.
Right.
In fact, when they went to take off, they nearly nicked the top part of a tree in the yard. So what are they trying to... So, of course, poor kids, they were terrified. They're going, who are these? What are these? What's going on? And I said, look, I'll take care of it. You just calm down. It's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Right.
It's probably some of the police force doing a thing on maybe a drug bust or something near you.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
So, okay, that's all it is.
There you go.
Thank
that
you.
helps.
Okay, so they were calmed down. But I thought, I'm going to investigate this. I've had enough of this.
Right.
So I went to a helicopter place that's on the west side here.
Okay.
And I went in and I said to the lady at the desk, I know this is going to sound strange, but I need to ask you a question. She said, sure. I said, do you own or have or run black helicopters with blacked out windows? Do you have such a thing?
Right.
She kind of looked at me with a weird look on her face and a smirk on her face as if to say, oh boy, here comes another one. And I said, look, I know what this must sound like, but really I need to know. She said, we don't have any. And I said, well, what about Canada? And like do the Canadians somewhere else in Canada have something like that? She said, not that I know of. Not with where the glass is black.
That's right, because they're themselves, they're dealing with pretty much commercial aircraft.
So I said, well, what about, the police force or something, if they're doing a drug bust or whatever? She said, no, those are black or kind of a dark green color, but they have a see-through glass, and they usually have numbers or a name or something on the helicopter.
That's right.
And I said, well, who in the world runs these black helicopters? She says, the only ones I know of are the military, and they're from the U.S.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you.
Right. Now, I've had reports from back in 2003, 2004.
Yes.
People, the Vernon area. Now, there's an old, I guess there's an Army base down there, and I guess it's not really being used much now, but I guess the cadets seem to do stuff out of there. I've heard at times there's been a lot of some top brass in there, coming in and out, a lot of aircraft of some sort. I mean, is there something that could be got at that there, out of that little base, coming up around your area, just looking around? Because you have to remember, now, we go back to this whole event on the 31st. There were, because a lot of people don't know this, there are 8 people that had seen the lights over the highway where you and your friend were and had your experience. Now, these people didn't know you. These people are all independent around the area. But when because I was getting all these reports, and they reported these lights around this area. So that there's good confirmation that something took place.
Yeah.
Not only that, there were green lights being seen. This is away from the 31st sighting, or your experience, around the Kelowna area, Okanagan, all over the place, flying around the mountains, hovering, stop, shooting up in the sky, over top of the mountains, down in the valleys. Some of them were dropping down. I heard there was even one fire caused by supposedly a green light. It wasn't a meteor.
Yeah.
So there was all kinds of stuff happening. So is it a possibility that somebody knew what was going on, and I'm sure they would, and were watching the area, and still to this day, well, for example, down there, I know that you had a support group. I don't know if it's still running right now.
I started a support group, yes,
right.
after
It was yours,
the experience, yes.
Right. So there were a number of others around the area that, of course, attended, and they were going through experiences of some type. So is it a possibility there was, because there was so much happening in your area that, and of course I would say the military had to have been aware of what was going on, and they were having somebody keeping an eye on it, and this is why that's a possibility. You've seen the helicopters. Your daughter's seen the helicopters. I think you've seen them before.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
So
it wasn't the first time.
That's right. So this is there's just so much in that area. I haven't received so much like in for 2005, a little slowed down 2004, but the two years in a row, that was crazy. So I really do believe that they were keeping an eye on something down there.
Well, I'll tell you, Brian, your guess is as good as mine.
Exactly.
But I have to say to you that on different occasions through our lives, the children and I have been buzzed, as they say, by jet black helicopters with blacked out windows.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we have no idea who they are, where they're from. We are almost more terrified of those than we are of anything else. Right. And I don't know why. I can't give you an answer for that.
Exactly.
But they really bother me.
That's right, because you can't get an answer. That's right.
Well, they usually happen after something has happened to us through the night, or we've had a sighting.
Right, exactly.
And it's not in our imaginations. My goodness, I mean, we've had more witnesses to some of our sightings and things that have happened to us than we can shake a stick at.
Yep.
I mean, you yourself from the July 31st, 2003 incident have how many witnesses now?
Well,
what happened to us?
There was eight for sure, like we said earlier, and there was a ninth. I've never talked to the ninth, but there was definitely a ninth, and I never ended up getting a hold of them or whatever.
If we keep staying like ostriches and keep putting our heads in the sand and don't try and face this thing and get answers, we're going to keep living in fear and ignorance. We have to put the pieces together. We have to figure out what's going on here.
Most definitely.
How do we deal with this,
I'll tell you, people have been working in this field for ages. They're a lot more clever than I am. And they come a little bit, we come a little farther probably each year maybe, but they're still, you're right. We need some answers now. If it wasn't for people like yourself who come forward and give us the information, tell us the experiences of what's going on, we're sort of lost. If more people who hear this, who read these stories, will be feel safe enough not to be, be careful who you report to. There's good people out there. You can report it and just make sure, hey, I want to remain anonymous. I don't want my words being posted, or you can post them. Just leave my name off. Whichever. It's the information that's so important that maybe it might actually lead to finding some answers one day.
Well, I'll tell you.
Or some kind of a disclosure of some sort.
Yes. And if they're lucky enough to have had, like, I consider myself extremely lucky, because were it not for you, Brian, and Jeff Friends, and also Chad Bigatini, who have been supporting me, giving me all the support all this time, I don't know what I would have done.
Well,
to be quite honest with you, you're the three that have kept me really going. So, I'm lucky, but what about, there must be hundreds of other people like ourselves.
Hundreds of thousands.
Exactly, who are experiencing this. And this is not just happening in the States. This is happening right here in your own backyard, people. Right here in BC, right here in Canada.
You bet, and I can tell you that there is so many people, I mean, they won't admit it, like Prince George.
Yes.
There is so many people in there who claim to have had an up-close experience with some kind of craft, some kind of beings. I mean, some of these people, matter of fact, there's a doctor out there that people can go to. He's a regular family physician. If you're lucky enough to have him as your family doctor, you can actually sit down and chat with him. And he's not laughing at you. He's not making silly comments or thinking you're nuts. He's actually listening. So, there's a few of them around that actually is a step forward for people.
Well, maybe we'll have to get his name, Brian, because the next time I wake up with a radiation burn, or when my children do, believe me, I'll be up there to talk to him and show it to him.
Exactly. Well, there's no problem. I could get his name and number. That wouldn't be a problem at all.
That would be wonderful.
That's no problem at all. But, this is what we need. More people with an open mind to say something is happening out there, and it is. There's no question about it. Now, also, you have a book that you've been working on for some time now.
Yes.
And it sounds really amazing. I know you've spoken about it on Jeff Brent Show, and I know I have received many emails from people that can't wait for the book to be out because they want to purchase it.
Well, I hope I'm not going to disappoint them too much. I've never written a book before. So it will be written possibly in a different way than what they're used to reading. But it is our lives and our truths, and as God is our witness, this is what it's going to be about, our lives.
You don't have to
experience.
That's right. You don't have to get fancy-dancy about something. You're telling a story, and you're telling of the experiences and within the family, what's been going on. That's what people want.
Yeah.
They want to hear what's happening from the heart, not some silly robot thing up the road, the way I look at it half the time. Because I sit down and read some books and I shake my head. I say, oh my God, I think it's going to be really good. I know it will be, and I know, and always something to know too. You have more support than you can imagine.
Oh, thank you.
You have no idea. You really do. So many people are always ask about how she do it. I mean, it's weekly anyway, for sure. Somebody's writing a letter.
Well, that means a lot to me. It really does, because believe me, you tend to feel quite alone with everything. So.
You would. A person would. You have to feel alone, because who do you talk to? You can maybe talk to maybe a family member, if you can, hey, you can trust them, maybe a friend, or you got somebody there, your boyfriend, whatever. I mean, you can do this. Talk to somebody like myself or Graham Conway. You've talked to Graham.
Graham has been absolutely wonderful in the past. Yeah.
Other than getting on a radio show and that, you can do a spiel on that and tell your story and stuff, but you still got to come back and deal with it every day. It's every day of the week. It doesn't go away. I mean, even if you wake up in the morning, hey, the day's beautiful and everything's going cool, you go to do your work, come home, and there's somewhere along that way you're going to think about it.
Yeah.
It just never leaves you. And it's good to be able to talk to someone. If not, even if a person doesn't have the answers, you can still get some of it off your chest. It's got to be a little bit of a relief, although it doesn't solve the problem.
I wrote the book for many reasons, Brian. I think, one of them was very therapeutic for me, for sure. It was very difficult, very hard at times, because of course I relived everything every time I would talk about something.
That's right.
But I think the main reason was to bring an awareness to people. To stop living in fear. I don't want to live in fear anymore and hiding all the time.
Right.
And hopefully this can help other people. Maybe people can take what they need from my book, whatever that may be. It could be a parent who's experiencing things with their children or their grandchildren, and they're thinking they're going crazy, but once they read what's happened to us, they'll go, oh my God, we're not crazy and we're not alone.
And also, here's a lady who is very strong and who has maybe thought of, oh gosh, I can't deal with this anymore, and it just got to a point where it's just low, but you picked yourself back up. You have children. You have a life. You have a life to live. There's a lot going for you, I'm sure, and a lot to come, Sometimes things don't look that rosy, of course, but you pulled yourself back up. You're a strong person. And people can see that, and obviously you're carrying on, you're speaking about it. Gosh, you've started that support group, you got a book going. I mean, you're giving a good message to people.
Well, like I said, I hope that it will help in some small way, even if it's in a small way, that it can help some individual out there to maybe be able to face this in a better way or something. I mean, I talk about you, and there's so many people now in BC, like yourself. There's UFO BC in Vancouver. There's different people, and of course the certified counselor that's been working with me for over a year now, Chad Bigatini, who's absolutely wonderful.
Right.
I mean,
Good news.
people need to know that you guys are out there.
That's true. Yeah,
you know that you're here for us.
Yep, that's right.
You're not alone.
That's right. And hey, I'm here, Graham's here, and there's other people like the other gentleman you mentioned, and I'm sure there's others too. You know, we're here, hey, if nothing else, to listen. If that helps. I mean, you can do the best you can. Sometimes your hands are almost tied because what do you do? But we can still try.
Of course.
You know, and that's what's important, and hopefully, you know, everything else, like the family and everything, things will just pull together. Maybe this will all end one day. It would be very nice. It would be nice. It'd be like probably losing a family member, and I don't mean to be funny, you know, really, because I mean it's been in your life for so many years now.
Yes, that's true.
You
that's
know,
true.
but maybe it would be good to say goodbye. You know, it'd be nice to just leave us alone. You know, because it's not a laughing matter, but sometimes. You know, sometimes when I hear these stories, it is upsetting, it is heartbreaking, and sometimes I sit here thinking, I've got to sort of think to myself, oh, I've got to come up with something stupid to say because, you know, otherwise, you know, your heart, it just drops, you know, and it really does get you down. I know when you're telling me these stories here, you know, some of the stuff's been going on back in 2003 and up into 2004. My God, you know, you go to bed at night and you just stay there and just think about it. I don't know how they can deal with this. But you did. You know,
because we have no choice.
That's right.
Especially if you have children. I mean,
but it helps to have some strength too.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it, you know, seems like it's pretty low, gets you down, you still put yourself up and you went on and you did deal with it, and you know, you did a good job.
Thanks.
You did.
Thank you.
So, anyways, we have your book that's underway. I know we're going to end up, you'll send me an image or whatever, and we'll get the information. I'm going to make sure I post it on my front site so everybody can see it and can order it.
It's just a matter of finding a book publisher right now, and it's done.
Good. And so as long as, you know, have that, making sure you let me know right away, because I do want to get it all posted, and I'll get in my newsletter and do everything I can. I know there's been people that have already asked me and said, when's it coming out? And I says, as soon as it happens, you'll know. I'll make sure it's posted there. I'll let you know. So there's a lot of people who are interested in it. I don't think they're going to be disappointed one bit. Like you said, you're retelling your story, your experiences, and it's going to be good. I know it will be.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Yeah, well, we all need it once in a while. I know I need it too, but I honestly do. It's going to be quite something, because I know how many emails and how many letters that people still ask. Like I said, they still ask, how's she doing? You know, what's happening? And this is why I thought it would be a nice idea to do this, just to give an idea. Hey, she's still around. She's still kicking. She's moving on. You know, all those things are still happening, and it does get a person down from time to time, but you're still there and you're still fighting.
You bet.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you very much for taking the time with me for doing this.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome.